DawgNation, and welcome into DawgNation at Large. Happy early Thanksgiving to everyone. I am Kaylee Mansell with Connor Riley, and I just have to tell you a story about something that happened to me the other day, and I need you to tell me what it means or if it doesn't mean anything at all. It was just a very rare situation. So I came home from the Georgia-Charlotte game, probably got home at like 7:30, and I get to my door, and there is a big, fat yellow jacket sitting right next to my door handle, which we're at the stage of the year now where even though it's not that cold, like bugs are dying. And my first instinct is like, maybe I'll just try to open the door and it'll fly away. Didn't do that. Sat right there. Ended up having to take off my shoe and just kill it in one hit. But I was like, is this some sort of weird omen knowing that Georgia and Georgia Tech are ahead? Because I genuinely can't tell you the last time that I saw a yellow jacket.
It's nothing. Look, bees are a pest, a nuisance, much like I think Georgia Tech fans are as someone who grew up in the Atlanta area. No need to make something out of this bigger than it actually is. You know, you saw a yellow jacket, you squashed it, much like Georgia has been doing with your beloved Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in recent years.
I just couldn't tell. I was like, is this a bad sign? Because number one, it's on my door. And number two, my first attempt, it wouldn't fly away. Or is this a good thing because I was able to kill it in one hit, which, I mean, that has nothing to do with how great my aim was in that moment. But I was like, this feels really weird. I'm really big into omens, and my brother was there to see it. And I was like, I don't know if I'm supposed to have a bad feeling or a good feeling or not supposed to feel anything at all.
Maybe the Yellow Jacket was just showing you some love and wanted to thank you for your support as America's premier Georgia Tech tout. You know, someone who picked them to go to the playoffs in the beginning of the season, and now unfortunately doesn't look like that's going to end up happening. But maybe this was this Yellow Jacket's way of just trying to say thanks.
I will not waste my words on this. This is DawgNation at Large.
It's the show for the new breed of Georgia Bulldog fan. This is DawgNation at Large with DawgNation insiders Connor Riley and Kaylee Mansell.
And just for the record, while I have you guys here, I am not someone that is typically scared of bugs in general, but if it flies, it is not my forte. So had to get that thing away from my door. I think it might still be on the bottom of my shoe, actually, but that's fine. Maybe Georgia will do the same thing to Georgia Tech this week, which is obviously the focal point of our show today. And you're going to hear a lot about the stats that matter in this game, the people that matter, but I think that there's two people that matter above everyone else, and those are the two people we're going to talk about today. Of course, that's Buster Faulkner versus Mike Bobo. Then we'll follow it up with our Dog Bites segment where we'll talk about CJ Allen, Ellis Robinson, Bo Walker, and some others. And then we'll do our favorite memes of the week, followed up with a Black Friday fun segment. SEC coaches are going Black Friday shopping. What are they trying to get? And then, of course, we'll wrap it up with our touchdown predictions for the week. But let's start with the matter at hand. Georgia versus Georgia Tech. I feel like a lot of people are going to look at this game and say it's Kirby versus Brent Key or it's Gunnar Stockton versus Haynes King, but I think they're all wrong. I think what this game is really going to come down to is two people. Mike Bobo and Buster Faulkner, two very similar play callers who are very familiar with one another, and somebody's going to have to get in their bag for this game.
Yes, and I think specifically it's going to be Buster Faulkner if Tech is going to have a chance in this game. Mm-hmm. Tech's defense is quite bad this year, and with what we've seen from Mike Bobo, I expect him to really do a great job of attacking this Georgia Tech defense. But for Buster Faulkner, I think this is a statement game for him. I think he is someone who he's done a great job against Georgia in the past. Last year, 563 yards of offense, the second most ever given up by a Kirby Smart defense. All those coaches for Georgia that were on that staff a year ago that got, quite frankly, cooked up by Buster Faulkner and Haynes King in the Black Friday clean old-fashioned hate game, they're all back this year. And they're going to need to have a much better plan and a much better way of attacking this Georgia Tech offense, which, while even though the Yellow Jackets have lost some games of late, they're still putting up points and putting up yards in those games. So I think Buster Faulkner is a central figure in this game, but he's not the only important offensive coordinator on the field on Saturday.
Yeah, when we look back to last year's game, it was Buster Faulkner who was in his bag, and I remember Georgia fans were calling to replace Mike Bobo with Buster Faulkner, and as you mentioned, they put up 563 yards of total offense. Now, I don't think it's the crazy throws that Haynes King made that had Georgia fans thinking, what's going on? It was the rushing stats they put up against Georgia. It felt like the very much run the ball down your throat type of offense that Georgia fans are used to seeing from their program, and I really am surprised that the team that had the most rushing yards in that game didn't come out on the other side. But when we show you what Georgia Tech did last year in the run game, 47 carries for 260 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, 5.5 yards per carry. But the big thing that we'll circle back on here in just a moment is the time of possession. 37 minutes and 11 seconds compared to Georgia on the other hand. Now listen, you do have to keep in mind that Trevor Etienne didn't play in this game. It was really Nate Frazier carried the bulk of it, but significantly less for Georgia against Georgia Tech. We'll show you what Georgia did on the other hand, just for a point of reference here. Just 26 carries for 108 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 4.2 yards per carry, and just 22 minutes and 49 seconds time of possession. The time of possession was the biggest factor in all of this, and like I said, it's one of those rare instances where the team with less rushing yards ended up winning, but at the end of the day, if it weren't for the Dan Jackson thing, all the numbers should have pointed to the fact that Georgia Tech should have won that game, and I don't think that Georgia fans were expecting to see Georgia Tech run the ball down Georgia's throat like they did.
Yeah, that's a game Georgia, quite frankly, should have lost a season ago, and they made just enough plays to get it done at the end. And the big thing, to your point, Kaylee, and this leans into the time of possession factor, Georgia was down 17-0 in this game, and from there, Georgia Tech was able to shrink the game, especially in the second half, limit possessions, and that's why Georgia needed overtime to find a way to win this game, and they needed 8 of them to do it. So I think this year, especially a week after that Pittsburgh game last week, where Georgia Tech fell behind 28-0, and they had to rely more on throwing the ball to try and get back into that game. They were forced to play an uncomfortable style, and they couldn't quite complete the comeback against Pitt. I think this week against Georgia Tech, it's critical for this Georgia offense to come out, start fast, and put points up on the board, because I think we can expect Georgia Tech to move the ball, go on some long drives, score some points in this game. You know, Georgia doesn't need to stop them every time. They probably need only about 4 or 5 stops to win this game. Offensively, if you're able to do what you were, say, against Texas or against Mississippi State, and get out to a quick, successful offensive possessions where, you're getting touchdowns on, say, 3 of your first half 4 possessions, and you've got 21 points at halftime, 17, 20 in that range, I think you feel pretty good about what you're going to be able to do to this team in the second half of this game. So that's where I think for Mike Bobo, it's critical that they have a great plan to come out, attack Georgia Tech, and really force Georgia Tech to try and match what Georgia is doing offensively. Because they didn't do that a season ago, and that, just as much as the defensive struggles, were a reason why Georgia needed a minor miracle to pull out the win in this rivalry.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I do think that the key in this game for Georgia is to get ahead early and stay ahead, because we have seen even the big deficits that Georgia Tech has been in, they've been able to overcome a lot of those. They've had 4 fourth-quarter comebacks this year, and I believe that Georgia Tech's going to want to play the style that they're comfortable with, and that is the run game. When you look at them this year, second in the ACC for yards per game, and statistically, they will be the best rushing team that Georgia has faced, but on the other hand, I do believe this is going to be the best rushing defense that Tech has faced this year. Their passing offense not nearly as good as the run game, so if Georgia can force them to play their style of ball early on, then Georgia Tech's going to have to lean on the thing that they are weaker in the second half to be able to achieve these comebacks that we've seen from them so far this year.
And I'm fascinated to see how Buster Faulkner and this Georgia Tech offense go about attacking those Georgia linebackers. C.J. Allen not going to play in this game as he continues to recover from a knee injury. And I think that's a pretty sizable loss given what Haynes King is able to do in the run game. So they're really going to be relying, Georgia is at linebacker, on guys like Raylan Wilson, Chris Cole, and Justin Williams to have really strong games on Friday against Georgia Tech. And Cole's played well since C.J. Allen went down with that knee injury against Texas. He's going to need to have the best game of his career on Friday, in my opinion, if Georgia's going to win with ease. And I don't expect this to be an easy game for Georgia. And so much of the way we talked about Chris Cole is what he brings when he's playing in pass coverage or when he's rushing off the edge. They need him in this game more than any other to be a traditionally great inside linebacker. We've seen C.J. Allen do that this season. I don't use this lightly, but he is playing as well as Roquan Smith was in 2017 prior to that knee injury. And while Georgia expects to get him back for the college football playoff run, not having him against Buster Faulkner is going to be a significant loss in my opinion. And I know Faulkner, as great of an offensive coordinator as he is going to find out ways to put Georgia's inside linebackers in tough situations where he's going to try and get them to think and make plays. And Georgia's got to just go out there and perform without their defensive leader.
Yeah, I'm glad you talk about the defensive playmakers because right now I want to focus on the offensive playmakers. But before we do that, I just kind of want to show the similarities between the run game that Buster Faulkner has as well as Mike Bobo's. Pretty similar in terms of how they use their run game. Georgia Tech does have more rushing yards per game. Georgia's got more attempts. Georgia Tech's got more rushing touchdowns. The time of possession, Georgia actually leads the SEC in time of possession. Now, I do feel like just in terms of the quarterback that Haynes King does have the rushing advantage. He's second in the ACC for rushing yards per game, and that's not just quarterbacks. That is all of the players. Now, Gunner doesn't run the ball nearly as much as Haynes, but when we look at the other two backs that each team has, for Georgia Tech, it's Malachi Hosley, Jamal Haynes, who are both averaging over 40 yards per game, but then you've got Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens, who are averaging for a combined more total than Georgia Tech's two backs. So even though I do feel like Buster Faulkner's got the advantage with his rushing quarterback in Haynes King, specifically in the run game, I think that Georgia has the two better backs in this game, and I don't think that Georgia Tech has seen two guys like that.
No, and especially with Chauncey Bowens coming back, expected to play in this game, I think that allows you to work both Frazier and Bowens in a way where you're not asking too much of one running back. I don't think that this Georgia staff wants to put 20 carries on Nate Frazier in this game. Conversely, if I'm Nate Frazier, we saw him do this against Mississippi State, but we couldn't quite see him do it against Charlotte. I want to see him when he gets to the second and third level break tackles and turn those 8-9 yard runs into 20, 30, in some cases, maybe even a 40 or 50 yard run. Because if he's able to do that, that's going to make things so much easier for this Georgia offense. And this Georgia Tech defense is bad enough at that to where I think that can happen for Georgia. So if I'm Nate Frazier, I'm not, and he's going to do this well where he gets those 5, 6, 7 yard carries. I need him to break off 2 or 3 big runs. You saw him do that against Mississippi State. It made a big difference that day. I think the confidence is there for him, and you saw him do it late in games against Texas as well. So I think if you're Nate Frazier, this is a game where for him, you're looking for him to see those big explosive runs like we saw against Mississippi State the last time Georgia faced a defense that was probably this poor at stopping the run.
Yeah, so last point from me on this. I don't want to call this a Bobo revenge game because I don't think he views it that way. But the noise last year after the Georgia Tech game was very loud and clear, and I'm sure that got back to Bobo, whether that was people telling him or stuff on social media. And he's been in his bag more this year than we've seen before. And what Georgia has done well, especially over the last few weeks with Mississippi State and Texas, is make people play their style of football. But when the offensive schemes are pretty similar, their play calling is pretty similar, it's going to come down to who can beat the other at their own game, and that's what Mike Bobo is going to have to do against Buster Faulkner.
Yeah, there are people out there that have pointed out that Mike Bobo and Buster Faulkner make the same amount of money despite being in two obviously very different schools in terms of finances available. As you point out, Kaylee, he probably heard all offseason about how great Buster Faulkner is. And let's remember, Faulkner and Bobo were both analysts together on the 2022 staff at Georgia. Faulkner leaves to take the offensive coordinator job at Georgia Tech before Todd Monken goes on to become the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. But as someone who covered the team at the time, I think we all sort of knew that 2022 was Todd Monken's last year, and I have to think that if Buster Faulkner was a more serious candidate for the Georgia offensive coordinator job, he does not leave when he does to go be the OC at Georgia Tech. But Kirby felt very strongly about Mike Bobo. That worked out in 2023. It's worked out so far this season. And then you saw what he was able to do against Texas earlier in the month of November, how well Georgia played against Mississippi State. I'll be very interested in seeing what Bobo has cooked up for Georgia Tech in this game, especially because last year they just did not have all that great of an offensive performance all around, and they need a lot of late breaks to go their way. I'll be interested in seeing how he goes about trying to attack Brent Key in this Georgia Tech defense this time around.
Yeah, so for me, the mini matchup in this game, apart from the Georgia Tech rushing offense and the Georgia run defense, it's going to be Buster Faulkner versus Mike Bobo, and maybe by the time the game's over, the noise this time will be on Mike Bobo and what he's done. You brought up CJ Allen. That's somebody that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. What happens with him? What do they do without him? But first, we want to remind you that here on DawgNation at Large, we are so excited to partner partner with Zagoria Law Firm, and what we love about Zagoria Law Firm is that they're the only law firm in the state that specializes in representing people bitten by dogs, as well as those who have been knocked down by dogs. That's right, dog fans. They are the official dog bite injury lawyers of the Georgia Bulldogs. So if you or a loved one has been hurt by someone else's dog, give them a call at 833-GA-DOG-BITE. That's DOGBITE, or visit ZagoriaLaw.com. Now we'll do dog bites. All right, I want to get real about something with CJ Allen, and this is just my speculation. Don't take anything that I say seriously, because it might not be the case. Usually they say that no news is good news, but with the CJ Allen stuff, I actually feel like it might be the opposite, that no news is not good news in his case, especially with the way that Kirby's kind of talked about him and that he's doing so great on the sidelines, doing so great as a coach, and obviously they were fine without him for Charlotte, but I mean, is there any expectation that we see him on Friday? And if that's not the case, I mean, is it really just coming down to Chris Cole and Justin Williams? And will that be enough?
I'd be pretty surprised at this point in time if we do get to see CJ Allen against Georgia Tech on Friday. Especially, this is an area where if you're a Georgia fan, you probably wish they knew what they were going to be doing with the SEC championship game, because there's a world where this could be Georgia's last game of the 2025 season, and if you're someone who thinks this defense plays best with C.J. Allen, which they do, a long layoff for C.J. Allen might not be the worst thing in the world, but if Georgia's playing in that SEC championship game, I think there's a better chance he's available for that game. I think he pushed to really try and be in that game and help this team in that regard. You see our wonderful Cody Chafin's getting video of Allen with the sleeve on his left leg there. I think that this is a game where Georgia, as important as this rivalry game is, they know they have more important goals ahead of them, and to accomplish that, they're going to need C.J. Allen. And so because of that, I think that they're not going to rush CJ back in this instance and try and get him an extra week either for the SEC championship game or an extra few weeks for a potential first-round home playoff game for Georgia.
But also, too, before we move on, want to give some credit to Georgia, because I do believe one thing that Glenn Schumann has done so well is recruit talent at the high school level for linebackers. So the fact that you got your best player on the defense probably isn't going to play, but we're sitting here still fairly confident in what Chris Cole and Justin Williams bring to the table. That just goes to show that the importance of high school recruiting is not dead, and these guys are being put into a position that they may not be all the way ready for, specifically Justin Williams. So got to give some credit to Georgia on the recruiting trail for having two young guys that are able to step up in that position and still give people optimism, you know?
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about Ellis Robinson. Third interception on Saturday, which is tied for second in the SEC now for interceptions. And I can't help but think back to something that somebody asked us when we did our DawgNation on Tap event, and it was about the prime time examples of development at Georgia. And right now I think Ellis Robinson embodies that perfectly, because I remember sitting at the Tennessee game, multiple pass interference calls, dives on top of the pile, and now he's really becoming one of Georgia's most consistent defenders, and this was somebody who was a really highly ranked recruit, came in, people were expecting to see him right away, but he just wasn't ready. Georgia's taken their time with Ellis Robinson. I feel like we're really seeing the growth now in real time, and so this is a player that we've really had the opportunity to watch get better each and every week, and the story between him and Dalen Everett and their development has been so similar. So Ellis Robinson only continuing to grow. Wanted to give him a shout out.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference from the way this Georgia defense is playing now from where they were at the beginning of the season is because of how much better Ellis Robinson and DeMello Jones have gotten over that stretch. And look, it's a Georgia team. If they're going to win a national title, they're going to have to play some really good wide receivers in the college football playoff. You know, you see what Ohio State has with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. If Robinson and Jones keep playing like they have of late, both physically in the run game, but also how sticky they've been in pass coverage, I don't know if there's a team out there that has the cornerbacks to match up with that Ohio State passing offense as well as Georgia does. And so it's a credit to Dante Williams, the cornerbacks coach at Georgia, for how he's continued to help Ellis Robinson get better. But even on Robinson in particular, it would have been so easy for him to go in a shell after how he had played to start the season. You mentioned the Tennessee and Alabama games and how he struggled there. He's gotten better each and every week, and then you see that with the interception he had. I thought he played very well against Texas as well. And you pair that with the growth of DeMello Jones, and then you factor in Dalen Everett, a better veteran on the outside. Georgia is very, very good at cornerback, and even going into next year with Everett moving on to the NFL, I don't know if there's a team next year that's poised to have two cornerbacks as good as what Georgia will in Ellis Robinson and DeMello Jones.
Another young guy who shined on Saturday, and we knew that somebody was going to get their opportunity, but I don't think I had Bo Walker in that discussion at all, and he scores 3 touchdowns, his first career ones ever for Georgia, definitely was put into that spotlight. Now, granted, Chauncey Bowens did not play on Saturday, but now kind of seeing what Bo Walker has done, is there a way that moving forward that Georgia finds more ways to include him, or is it just a matter of opportunity in a game against a team like Charlotte?
I think there's a world for him where he might get more playing time. Obviously how much Chauncey Bowens plays this week coming off the injury that he suffered against Texas, I think will be interesting to watch. But, not all those touchdowns came in garbage time. Those were second quarter touchdown runs, 2 of them. And it was an impressive individual effort from Walker. He's a guy who's playing on special teams. I think that speaks a lot to what this Georgia coaching staff thinks of him. And if you expect to have a long college football playoff run and you want to limit the wear and tear on guys like Bowens and Frazier, maybe you find a way to give 4 or 5 plays a game to Bo Walker and splitting them from Frazier and from Bowens there. I was so impressed with how he ran, especially going back and watching how patient he was and waiting for the blocks to open up. And this is a guy in Walker who, again, not the biggest back in the world, but found a way to make a difference against Charlotte. I'm not expecting him to be Georgia's first or second most important ball carrier. He's not going to play more snaps than Cass Jones either. But he is someone who I think you saw against Charlotte can create a little bit for himself and may have carved out, a small role as Georgia goes deep into the college football playoff.
So the new Heisman odds from BetMGM just came out actually about an hour ago. Gunnar Stockton now has the 6th best odds to win it all. And I think that we're too late in the season for him to be able to make that jump. But do you think that just based on what little time we have left that there is a chance that he makes it to New York?
Yes, I think he needs to win the SEC championship game to get invited to New York. I believe that the 4 finalists will be Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza, Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love. I believe that one Ohio State player, whether it be Jeremiah Smith or Julian Sayin, will be invited to New York. And then I think it's going to be an SEC quarterback for that 4th spot. I think if Gunnar Stockton leads Georgia to a win over Georgia Tech and beats Haynes King, another viable Heisman Trophy contender, and then wins an SEC championship game, whether it be against Ty Simpson of Alabama or Marcel Reed of Texas A&M, I think that certainly helps his case to at least get to New York in this instance. I don't know that unless he has something like 10 touchdowns in the next 2 games, that might be enough to push him over the top, especially with Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt also being, I think, someone who has a lot of public love and would like to see him get invited. But I do think there is a world where Gunnar, because of how well he's played in big games this season, does find himself in New York as a Heisman Trophy finalist. Albeit, I'd be very surprised if he's a Heisman Trophy winner this season. Which
is so funny. I sit here finding myself thinking, has Gunnar Stockton ever been to New York? I feel like he is just like anti-New York and everything that it represents. So him being there, that's something I wish that we could document, because something tells me that Gunnar Stockton's probably never been to NYC.
Just seeing Gunnar Stockton in Times Square trying to get a New York slice would be deeply funny to me.
All right, last thing. We've done a lot of SEC championship game talk. Something different for this week, though, because now we're getting closer and closer. We'll finally have an answer by Saturday night. But and just looking at the layout, the teams that could still contend for, I mean, what do you think is the most likely scenario to happen? Because for me, I think that Texas A&M or Alabama, one of those two is going to fumble the bag. So in my mind, I've already put it there that Georgia is going to be playing in the SEC championship. I don't know if it's because of a Texas A&M loss, an Alabama loss, or both of them lose, but something in my mind has already started to put the pieces together that they're going to play in it somehow.
See, for me, and this is just going off the vibes, I, for one, would like to see Georgia play in the SEC championship game. I think there's something to be said about getting to that game 5 years in a row, something only Florida has ever else done. And obviously, if you're there, you want to win that game. I think it would cap off what would be a very special season, especially seeing what that SEC championship meant to that 2024 team. But I kind of just, based on vibes, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Texas A&M is going to take care of a Texas team that I still think is wildly overrated for how we are talking and viewing them. Not us in particular, but the college football media at large. And I just don't believe that this Auburn team, despite, an Auburn, Jordan Hare at night, Auburn's played 3 games at night this season. They've averaged 10 points in those games. And yes, Hugh Freeze was the head coach at that point in time. They made a change since then. I just don't think that's going to be enough to beat Alabama. So I actually this weekend do expect both Alabama and Texas A&M to find a way to win, keeping Georgia out of the SEC championship game.
Well, there is a world where we will be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium for 2 weeks in a row, and that starts on Friday. And, of course, with that, we'll have our DawgNation Game Day show going to kick off Friday at 1:30. It'll be myself, Jeff Santel. We'll be live from the field, live boots on the ground with Cody Chaffins. Connor Riley will also join us, so we hope that you will join us Friday at 1:30 for DawgNation Game Day for Georgia and Georgia Tech. Speaking of Cody Chaffins, let's get into some Meme Machine.
Who's that going down the track? Who's that coming down the track? It's a Meme Machine and Red Black. It's a Meme Machine and Red Black. Oh
no! What's up, everybody?
What's going on, Cody? I like that
Cody.
shirt.
I wore it for Connor. The Super Bowl 51 shirt. One of the many games I've gotten to cover in my career, and one that did not go the home team or the team I was covering's way. But so there you go, Connor. A Super Bowl 51 shirt for you.
Yeah,
got
great
on this day
Super Bowl.
before Thanksgiving. You still have to remind you got to be thankful even in the tough times.
Yep.
All right.
And we're thankful we're not covering the Falcons. Not doing a Falcons
That's
show
very
this
true.
year. For
That's
sure.
very true. All right, so I'll kick it off this week. And look, let me just say, I didn't have that many likes on my Twitter account this week because essentially everything that I liked was about this Gainesville GHSA stuff because I'm just trying to keep up with it. So I'm going to recycle something that Brandon Adams used that I thought was really good on Twitter this week. This came from our friend Brandon Adams. He said, "You've got to hand it to Georgia Tech. They are going to great lengths to not show anything on film to Georgia." So I missed the entire first quarter of Georgia Tech and Pitt. I was on my way to have dinner with my sister and her fiance, and then all of a sudden I'm sitting down having dinner, and I turn around and look at the TV and see what the score is, and I was like, they are really fumbling the bag right now. Like, this is insane. So I thought that Brandon did a good job of putting it in a very Brandon Adams way. So this is kind of a cop-out this week, but still a very quality tweet from Brandon, who is exactly what Lane Kiffin thinks he is on Twitter. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm sure Brandon loves being compared to Lane Kiffin.
I'm saying that he's better. He's better.
Doesn't do much hot yoga. All right, I was on your same wavelength, Kaylee. Georgia Tech was kind of the meme of the week. It's George Costanza. I feel like my old self again. Totally inadequate, completely insecure, paranoid, neurotic. It's a pleasure. I think Georgia Tech fans, they are uncomfortable being a favorite. They are uncomfortable being predicted to make the college football playoff. They much rather, and they even asked Brent Key about it in his press conference today, they much prefer to be the underdog, to be the one doubted, to be the one that everybody hates us, and why is everybody so mean to us? I think they cherish that role, and they are back in it.
Kaylee, have you ever seen Seinfeld?
I have seen Seinfeld.
Okay.
I tried to go see him live earlier this year, but no, I watched Seinfeld all through college, so
Okay, good,
enjoyed it.
Good.
Yeah, because I heard his voice in the B movie. I was like, who is that?
No. All right.
What's the deal with
My
this guy?
meme came from us from the College Football Playoff Committee last night. Look, it's popular out there for people to do this now. I get it. The whole 6-7 thing, it's out of control. I realize I'm making a bigger deal out of this than it is. It is so unfathomably stupid. Any adult that does this, I think, looks worse. They lose credibility in my eyes. I just roll my eyes at them. You trying to be like a cool, young, hip teenager. And then naturally, the College Football Playoff Committee chair, Hunter Yurachek, the Arkansas athletic director, who has been foisted into this role because Mack Rhodes had to step down and has since lost his job at Baylor. He goes on the College Football Playoff Committee and is asked about Ole Miss being jumped by Oregon, a move I personally did not agree with because I believe Ole Miss has a better win than Oregon. And he goes with this.
Change at 6-7 with Oregon and Ole Miss swapping spots. How much of an impact potentially could it be on Ole Miss if it's determined they don't have their head coach in the field? 6-7.
Oh my God.
But seriously, Rich, we did.
Absolutely unserious behavior by everyone involved. ESPN for letting it air, the College Football Committee, Playoff Committee for letting this bozo get up there and represent them. And on a very serious question about how Lane Kiffin's potential departure might impact an Ole Miss team that I believe should still be in the College Football Playoff, goes with the absolute most buffoonery that he could possibly think of in that moment. Everyone associated with this is unserious. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Yeah, you can kind of tell by Reese's reaction too. He's like, "Really? Like I have to laugh in this situation?" But you could kind of see it on his face.
He called
too.
him Rich too. He didn't even get his name right. He said Rich. Seriously, it's Reese. Who's covered the
God,
SEC
that's
for
worse.
45 years.
Wow. Yeah, like you said, super unserious. That is so. Just when you think that they can't make themselves look any worse, something like that happens, and wow, the bar is. It was low, but now it is on the ground. All right. So, really quick, we are going to do a Black Friday fun segment. I'm excited for this. Lots of room for creativity here. Just really quick, want to ask a Thanksgiving favor. If you wouldn't mind subscribing to our DawgNation YouTube page. That way you can get updated anytime that we make a post. Hit subscribe, hit that bell next to it. So that way on weeks like this, when things are a little bit mixed up, Hedges is on Tuesday, At Large is on Wednesday, and like next week when we have two coverages for signing day, you'll get notified when we go live. And with that, if you could give us a like on this page, if you're just feeling extra thankful for Georgia football today, we would greatly appreciate that. And it's still weird to me that this game is on Friday. Like I'm aware that we're filming this and it's a Wednesday, but in my head, the game is still on Saturday, even though I know it's not. So to kind of get us in the mood for a Black Friday game, we're going to do something today where we're going to do what college football coaches are searching for on Black Friday. I actually had some fun with this one, but it was a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to let Connor go first. We're going to do one each because I want to see like how aggressive can I be with this. So we'll let Connor set the precedent because he's usually good at being pretty appropriate.
Yeah, first up, Alabama coach Kalen DeBoer. He's going to go shopping for a new suit, in part because his fabled black hoodie is no longer unbeaten. One of the lamer stories we've heard this year about he was undefeated in this black hoodie, and then they promptly lose at home to Oklahoma. So I want to get him some new sideline apparel, a new suit. Maybe even he can wear that suit to an interview where, he's potentially looking at the Penn State job. I know a lot of Penn State fans want that. There's been no obviously serious reporting on that. But, maybe if he finds a way to lose to Auburn this week, he might be looking for a new job, and that'd be great to show up with in a new suit. So Kalen DeBoer out there looking for a new suit on Black Friday.
Very good.
I also went Kalen DeBoer. I went in maybe a little bit of a different direction. He would probably have to find this on the dark web or the black market, but he's going to be looking for a deal on a new identity just in case he does lose to Auburn on Saturday. Those Alabama fans, we know how they can be. So he's looking for a really good deal on how to get a new identity just in hopes he doesn't lose to Auburn. But obviously you can't buy that at like a normal Black Friday store. You're going to have to kind of go out of your way to get that. But that was my Kalen DeBoer one. I hope that Cody has one better than me.
All right, so mine, I'm going with, it is Shane Beamer. He is logging on right now. He is typing into his computer what Black Friday deals, what doorbusters can he find. He is searching for something very specific. He's looking for a very small piggy bank. Yes, one that is only good for 2 quarters.
Wait, I know the order is supposed to go back to Connor. My other one that I took was Shane Beamer, who is going to be looking for the Kirby Smart Analytics book on sale because clearly he has no sense of clock management. We saw that against Texas A&M. So I also went Shane Beamer with my other pick, looking for a Kirby Smart Analytics book on sale.
I'm going to go with Dan Lanning here, surprisingly, and I'm just going to get him. You know how a few years ago Rob Lowe had that NFL-style hat where it was just the NFL logo in the middle of it? I'm going to get him a Big Ten hat with just the Big Ten logo in the middle of it because I thought his comments about scheduling in Chattanooga State after USC beats Oregon and he's taking a shot at the SEC for the schedule that they play, I just thought that was really out of bounds for Dan. I didn't think that was something befitting of him. But then you go back and look at some of the things he said, and it's ironic that the guy is like, we're not playing for clicks. There's a lot of Oregon clicks out there that are being generated in big games like this. So, Dan Lanning, who opened the year against an FCS team in Montana State, and Oregon has not exactly played that great of a schedule to this point. So, Big Ten Dan Lanning, who cut his teeth at Kirby Smart in the SEC, we're just going to get him a nice big old Big Ten hat there. We even might go jumbo size like that used to be back in 2022 and get him a big Big Ten hat.
Big Ten stand. All right, I had a couple other ones. Kind of on Kaylee's Kalen DeBoer thing. I thought Josh Heupel, he might go to academy.com, friend of DawgNation. Maybe he's looking for a ghillie suit, because if they lose to Vanderbilt, he is going to want to disappear this entire offseason. The arrows will be coming his way. Another one I had thought of, this is not my real one, another one I had thought of, Eli Drinkowitz, Sharpies and packing tape. He is gone out of Missouri. He's going to be finding a new job soon. But my other one, I thought, you know what? Our friend Steve Sarkisian, he'll be logging on, looking, maybe he's on Amazon, I'm not sure, he'll go to target.com. He is looking for a Kirby Smart Proof night light so he can get some sleep. Kirby has got to be in his nightmares all the time now, so poor Steve Sarkisian, get him a night light.
He's going to need a lot more than a night light. I had two that were, I guess I didn't know if they counted because they're not currently coaches at the moment. Obviously, Hugh Free is looking for some golf clubs, but definitely on sale because he knows that money's going to run out before time is up. And then also just feel like Brian Kelly might be waiting in line outside of Circuit City because in his mind, you know, it's still open. So just like I said, I didn't know if those counted. But now for the most serious matter, go ahead.
My other one would have been Brian Kelly, Duolingo, so he can pick up the accent of wherever he moves. But, there we go. All right.
So good. That's the best one out of all of them.
Yeah.
All right. Time to get serious about something. None of us got our touchdown predictions last week, and I don't put this on anybody except for Connor because I gave him the option to let's do young guys that score. But it's fine because none of us got the point. They really weren't, I guess, trying to give the ball to the seniors. But they didn't really play that much either. Mm-hmm. So this week is a big one. The score still remains the same. Cody in the lead with 5. Connor's got 4. I've got 3. But I also have the first pick this week. And as the season begins to wrap up, I have been saving this one because I have only taken him once this season. Give me a Gunnar Stockton rushing touchdown. I just really got to put some points on the board. And because I say that, he's not going to do that this week. That's just always how it goes. But I've been saving a lock for a while. Give me Gunnar Stockton rushing touchdown on Friday. And with that, I do believe that it is
Cody,
Connor.
go next. All right.
It's Connor.
I will go next. Georgia Tech had a lot of trouble with tight ends last week against Pitt. I think this is a big week for them. I thought about Noah Thomas here in this situation, given how we've seen him play of late. Mm-hmm. But give me Oscar Delpierre for the second time this season. It was a winner for me against Mississippi State. I'm going to go back to the well once more. I'm going to take Oscar Delpierre to get a touchdown in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Cody, you know who's free now? Still on the board.
Who is that? Who should I take?
You're the president of their fan club.
Oh man, I was so heartbroken
Just
last
do
week.
it.
Did y'all see that?
know.
They were like lined up. They weren't huddled. They were on the field, and they're like, "Hey, Cash, come off. Hey, Bo, go in." And then Bo scores. I said he's gonna run right at the middle, right to me. A great shot of it. But yeah, Bo. And we sat here last week, and I said, maybe I should go with Bo Walker, and I didn't. So I'm kicking myself. I'm not gonna go Cash Money this week. I think
It is Black Friday.
I can't remember all the guys I've taken, so hopefully I'm not out of chances, but I don't know
there's
Noah
anyone you're
Thomas.
out
I
of
think he's
yet.
been so hot lately. I think he stays hot, so I'm going to go Noah Thomas this week.
Oh, okay. I like that. All right, yeah. And then after next week, I will go back and do a check just so we have a postseason where everything stands. So I'm taking Gunnar Stockton rushing touchdown. Connor's taking Oscar Delp. Cody is taking Noah Thomas, who, I mean, he looks like he might get to the end zone each and every week. And then, of course, we have to save Zagoria Branch. So, all right, that's going to be our touchdown predictions for today. Connor, I don't know if you really learned anything, but do you have any final words?
I actually did. Our wonderful producer, Cody Chafin, just shared a lovely little Instagram story on Wednesday this week. The Georgia Tech game means a lot to him. He shared a picture of himself from the 2005 Georgia Tech game, a game the Bulldogs happened to win that year. And I would just like to say thank you so much for Cody for covering this program as long as you have now. Haven't covered every Georgia game, but you've been in a lot of them. And similar to me, the Georgia Tech game, I think always means a lot to both of us being, I think, Metro Atlanta guys. You, a Chamblee Bulldog, and myself being a Centennial Knight means a lot for this game. So kudos to Cody Chafin on all the wonderful work he continues to do here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like
2 decades of people getting in my shot.
over the last few weeks, I feel like I've learned that Connor is very, very thankful for Cody. So with that, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to all of you guys. Do some Black Friday shopping. I already started today. Not like I needed an excuse to do it anyway, but we appreciate you joining us here on a Wednesday night. We'll see you for DawgNation Game Day Friday at 1:30, and then we will be back in our normal spot next Thursday, maybe talking about an SEC championship or predicting what's going to happen with Georgia in the playoffs. So I'm excited to finally know what's going to happen, and that is what I am thankful for. With that, thanks for joining us. We'll see you right back here next Thursday night at 7 o'clock.